this is just information that I'm giving you, that I have come from Bangalore, and in Bangalore we have a institute that has recently been legislated into a university, and so now it is a university, and it is a university that is trying to look at the contemporary knowledge, contemporary relevance of our health sciences and traditions, both. As I said, there is a Sanskrit parampara and there is a Prakrit parampara, and we are trying to look at the contemporary relevance of both the Prakrit parampara as well as that of the Sanskrit parampara. So it's a university dedicated to that. That's all that I would say at this point of time, because it would then be a much longer thing if I were to elaborate further. We have about 200 people working in this university, and they are people who work both with the Prakrit parampara as well as the Sanskrit parampara, and we relate to science in a particular way. I am not of the view that science and scientific knowledge is nonsense. We are living, we are using it. We use it in many, many ways. This microphone I'm using is technology based on Western science. But there is a way in which you can use it to understand your tradition, and there are ways in which, and there are limitations to what science can do. Science is a reductionist form of knowledge. All our traditional knowledges are holistic, and when you say reductionist, it means that it has a reduced view, it has a partial view, and therefore it's a limited view. And the nature of our knowledge is it's holistic, and the part, basically science knows parts of nature, atoms, molecules, cells, organs, tissues, parts in incredible detail. It doesn't know interrelationship between parts, it doesn't know whole. In our knowledge systems we have picture of whole. We have notion of the part, so we have concepts of parts like Anu, Parmanu, etc. But we don't have structural knowledge, we don't have that kind of detailed knowledge of a part. But we have knowledge of whole in very amazing ways. And in our university we are trying, and so there is a relationship between the whole and the part. They are not, but not even the sum of parts is equal to the whole. So that must also be understood. And if you put an equal to sign between a part concept and a whole concept, you will destroy that whole. You will completely destroy it. So you have to be careful when you are working with different epistemologies. But we believe that you can work with them. And this university's endeavor is to work with them, but in an epistemologically informed way. And that is the nature of this university. We have called it a transdisciplinary university. This is a new terminology. We are familiar with interdisciplinary, we are familiar with multidisciplinary. These refer to combination of disciplines within the same knowledge paradigm. Interdisciplinary, modern and multidisciplinary is within the same knowledge paradigm of Western knowledge systems. Transdisciplinary is when you are crossing across different knowledge systems, is the way we interpret it. Someone may interpret it differently. But the way we interpret it is, you have now to be very epistemologically informed. You are looking at it across different kinds of ways of knowing.
Thank you, Darshanji. Open for questions and clarifications and whatever else the floor would like. We've clearly had something which opens our imagination to a different way of thinking about health completely.
Since the forum that has invited us for this incredibly profound and useful evening is South Asian, have you thought in the trajectory of your dialogues to include systems that are based on minerals, like whether they be Unani or they may be in Bhutan, they've been able to take toxics out of material sciences from the base of not just of plants, but of matter of all kinds. Have you thought of the dialogue truly becoming South Asian with the rich repository of traditions that we have in the subcontinent? The question addressed to you, although you're not sitting there.
Yeah, it's a good thought, and we have our limitations. We would like to be guided by more knowledgeable friends, including you. So we'll be happy to interact after the meeting
Just
and
one
find
question.
ways to do that.
One question. In the notion of I wanted to explore the word intuition. What is how do the people you have lived with and worked with translate that concept in their own language? The word intuition, or even the science of intuition, if I may call it that.
I have not come across a word that would be equal to intuition. Exactly. But if by intuition we generally mean ways of perceiving which are not wholly structured, but which get you into a deeper insight about things, what would translate as something equivalent to that would be that they think of everything as having a being of its own. So even a stone has a being of its own. So when you perceive the thing in a holistic manner, then I think what we refer to as intuition begins to work. So they have a whole process of understanding which is based on induced forgetting. Well, we all know of it, but this is how I would translate. When somebody gets possessed, that's a skill that you can't learn. So the spirit actually decides to whom does it want to go. It's like saying that the idea decides that I want to be part of this physical body. Now what happens in that is, everybody knows it's possession, but epistemologically, you are inducing a forgetting of yourself as part of this world, and you are now part of a different world of knowledge. And what I gather is that world of knowledge is what the ancestors did in so many past generations. And that is brought to everyday life through a conversation with the Sira. So the word that they use there is leski. Leski. Leski means to forget. So that's, and so this is not only a phenomenon that you do as an individual, but the forest is also thought of as a leski. For instance, when your settlement returns to nature after you abandon it, right? This part remembering, part forgetting is institutionalized as saying that you never return to the past. Once moving forward, you never go and settle back in the settlement that you abandoned, because that brings you illness, that brings you pestilence, that fails your crop. So an Adivasi will always look at the back, learn things from there, convert it into a short story, and those short stories actually contain all the knowledge that you need to have. So when you are in a crisis, you will interpret these stories as your reference text. So they are something equivalent to their encyclopedias. 10 generations ago, I'll give you an example. There was a conflict over land, and they didn't know how to decide that conflict. So two Siras, two Leskis sat and began to ask their ancestors, how did you resolve this issue at whatever point of time. They went back 8 generations. No solution. The 9th generation, one ancestor told them, the only way to do this is to eat the soil. And if this is your earth, if you have been true to Mother Earth, so that's how the use of the word mother becomes accurate, then you will not die. If you're telling a lie, then you will spit blood and die. Simple. So they did it. And one person died and one person lived. And that's how the land dispute was solved. Now, the intuition, I mean, there is an intuition out of a very different kind. I mean, I would hesitate to use the word intuition to describe this phenomenon.
I was asking this for a pragmatic reason, that when the tsunami happened, for example, and the Zauras moved 3 days earlier to a higher plane, at that time the friend who was the Minister of Science and Technology, I kept referring to him, that this is a scientific fact. They did go out. So how would you study this when you're spending millions in instruments under the sea, over the sea, in all kinds of hardware, but this actually really happened. So they said, how do you word it? And the scientists said, well, this is paranormal, and that we cannot have a category for to give money. Yet this happened. It was, how do they describe the word intuition? They actually
I will tell you
went
how
out.
as a friend of mine who actually worked with the Andamananis, Vishwajit Pandya, he has a book on that called Above the Forest, and he wrote a very interesting article on exactly this phenomenon. From what I gathered was, it is the smell of the air. It's the feeling of the pressure on the skin, right? That tells them how the sea works.
And this is all very possible to study.
It is.
To be able to.
You see, when you my hesitance to the use of word intuition is then it becomes very esoteric. You know, it's something that you can't
That's why I'm
grapple with.
asking for a word which is used by them.
They will never use that word. They will say it's in the air. They can smell it. They can smell the density of the air. No, we can't feel because wearing these clothes, our bodies don't perceive anything. The tactility of our senses is very poor. And to develop that tactility, you have to season it across the 4 seasons. You have to bear the heat, you have to bear the moisture. Only then the skin begins to feel the difference of moisture, the difference of heat, and then they read.
So how do we climatize the planners, people you worked with, the people I worked with, Darshan, to understand this phenomena, to be able to even begin to consider it, even on budget?
I mean, this is a thought which I have often wondered. You know, people have often said to people like me, you are preventing them from being beneficiaries of modern civilization. And my answer is, I am not preventing them from being beneficiaries. Please come. But the policy should say that anybody who wants to go back and spend 6 months with Aleski or with people like described by Mr. Darshan Shankar should have the openness to go. If I decide to go back, I'll be termed a madman and they'll put me in an asylum. Then why are you wanting to go back? In fact, when I went to do my fieldwork, I was told by my friends who were going to Oxford and Cambridge, you're moving backwards in time. And I'm still moving backwards in time for them. We don't talk. So I think a policy initiative should be taken to say, look, those who want to go back, please open the way for them. I want to go and settle in the forest. I can't. They will say you are reversing the clock. I think that is an important thing that can be done practically to impress upon the government. And there are many people who would go. And we don't want, they will say we need to create buildings for them. No, we don't want buildings. And there are many people who want.
Yeah, just a few comments.
असीम जी नाम बोल दीजिए.
My name is Asim Srivastava. Just a few comments on the discussion. One of the answers I read to your question, sir, was that what the Jaravas did in Andaman was to follow the elephants, among other things. I think everything that follow the elephants.
Yeah.
I mean, as
Animal
Sachi,
movements, yeah.
Sachi himself was telling me once that he was with an Adivasi community in which, they told him that you worry about the tiger dying, but long before the tiger dies, the bees stop pollinating, and long before that, other things are happening. So when we start worrying about the visible charismatic species, there's a whole long chain of ecological events, most of them invisible to the eye of science, which have happened, which elude cognition and which already forebode disaster from the perspective of those communities. So, I mean, I think that the fundamental crisis today is one of cognition. And that is a crisis which we cannot escape no matter what we do. And the reason is that we have all been brought up, at least in metropolitan urban India, with a completely industrial worldview, which is long past its time. It's lapsed long ago, except that our elites have been so elitized by global media that we are still bewitched by it. And in that sense, the Indian elite is completely out of phase, culturally with the rest of the modern world, as well as with our own past. So the way I like to think about this whole question of back to nature or return to nature is in terms of a resumption of our relationship to the natural world as against turning the clock back. And you know, the resumption, to resume our relationship with nature, that verb becomes very important then for our language, for English speakers in this country. And turning the clock back really does not make sense if the clock is going round. It will inevitably go back. So it will move in a cyclical spiral-like pattern and not back in a straight line. So only the linear imagination will think of it as going back in a linear way.
Thank you, Professor Savisachi. I think it was such an interesting talk. And I was wondering whether you can give a few glimpses into what kind of influence this whole experience and this scholarship has had on your own pedagogic practice in teaching sociology in Jamia.
Well, I first don't lecture, but I'm sitting in the lecture room. I have learned to respect the student as somebody who knows something already. Which means I don't begin by saying that you forget everything, you're all foolish, you've learned everything in the flesh. No, we begin with a conversation and we learn through examples as much as possible. I learned this from another friend in Himachal who, he's something like this. You know, I went there and he gathered about 200 people around him and he started to throw riddles at them. And then he would make people wonder what the answer is, and he would take them through a very good tour of nature before he gave them the right answer. So one thing that he taught me was, which is an example that I don't forget, he gave me a riddle which says, "Kaun pakhiru pank bina, kaun vriksh bina dal." Now, everybody was in, amazing stress and anxiety to see which is the bird and which is the tree. So he made them see all the birds and trees, and it was neither a bird nor a tree. It was the imagination. Right? He was telling them the imagination is kaun pakhiru pank bina, kaun vriksh bina dal. That's the imagination. That's the body of knowledge. So I mean, this has come to me not because of our university, because my teachers also taught me like this. My teachers never thought of me as somebody who's inferior in intelligence. They discussed with me the best ideas that they had, even if I didn't understand any of them. And the advantage was that at some point later in life, those ideas stuck in my head. Wow, that's what he meant. And so I just learned both these things from my teachers and my
Teachers in plural?
many teachers. And two of them primarily, Professor Agro and Ashish Dandi, who never lectured down to me, who always critiqued me so intensively that I had to reinvent myself each time I went. And the worst of the lessons was, you please go and do your MA again, you have learned nothing. So, and once he took my paper and just threw it at me and said, "Sorry, I don't want to read this." So I was slashed each time I went, but they also gave me the confidence to reconstruct. I mean, a lot of us did cry, and a lot of us felt very, very disheartened at the harshness of his treatment. But at the end of it, we realized that made us stand, strong and good. So we didn't fear making mistakes, and I think that's what I tell my students: make mistakes. And I also tell my students, research begins from whatever you know. It doesn't matter what you know, because we're all equals in the game of knowledge. So whatever you know, you start from there. So these are a few things that I use as pedagogy devices in class.
We check two questions. One from Professor Sachi. Modern mind, even when we imagine about mutuality, there's some element of reciprocity. So whatever you have learned from your gurus, you think of some Guru Dakshina. But whatever you have learned from Adivasis, what can you give them as Guru Dakshina, which is also of use to them, use in their own way? That's the question I have in mind. This is hard to imagine, and this is not just individual question. Even if we give space, mind the barbaric language, we can't express in any other way. We give them the space to be what they are, to pursue their worldviews, their life, their science. Then we gain a kind of imagination and inputs into our reimagining our epistemologies. But what do they gain, and how do they survive, and how do we share what we consider as fruits of modern science and technology? Is there any meeting ground? So these are the kind of questions which came to my mind. And Professor Darshan Shankar I have two questions from him. One, he can decide for a later visit to Delhi, but I want that question to be responded to at length at some point of time. Other than the colonial power dynamics, what were the reasons for delegitimization of Prakrit and Sanskrit knowledge systems, and the relationship between the two is lost to modern in quotes, modern mind, modern ruling elite in India.